Okay, welcome again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Katie Wysocki. I serve as the director in the Career Enrichment Network here in the College of Liberal Arts. Welcome to the Alumni Career Conversations focused on the sustainability industry. Two great alumni here with us today to share a little bit more about their own career journey. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them to you. Feel free to add your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will monitor those as we go. I do have some starter questions, but welcome you as students asking the questions you came here to ask. So you'll have the opportunity. To get us started, I would like to introduce Caroline. Caroline has over a decade of experience collaborating with mission-driven organizations to help achieve their goals. As a naturally curious person who loves to learn, she has worked in human resources, tech, finance, and academia. This range of industries and responsibilities has given her an interdisciplinary perspective on problem solving, and she is currently an independent consultant focusing on the intersections of business, policy, and impact. Previously, she was the director of Sustainable Innovation MBA program at University of Vermont, named the #1 green MBA in the US by the Princeton Review. She has a bachelor's degree from Penn State and an MBA from the University of Vermont. And in her free time, she enjoys hiking, yoga, skiing, and cooking. So you're in the best location for that, Caroline, in Vermont. We also have Lindsay with us. Lindsay Forney is an HRIS, HR Information Systems expert at Wärtsilä, a global leader in innovative technologies and lifecycle solutions for the marine and energy markets with over 17,000 employees. Wärtsilä emphasizes innovation and sustainable technology and services to help customers continuously improve their environmental and economic performance. In her current role, Lindsay is responsible for maintenance and small developments in all global HR information systems, as well as technical implementation for employee engagement surveys and Qualtrics. She is a self-proclaimed data nerd and feels like she has finally found her true passion in this role. Previously, Lindsay has worked as an HR manager for American Hydro Corporation, a Wärtsilä company, recruiter for EDSI, HR generalist with Kmart Distribution, and project consultant for EV Jacobs LLC, a very diverse set of companies and experiences, all bringing their own skills and learnings through the years. Outside of work, Lindsay also serves as a Subaru ambassador, sharing her love for the brand and volunteering in the local community. She is also an avid runner with the goal to run a half marathon in every US state and is an advocate for using running as a mental health tool. So thank you so very much for both coming and sharing a little bit about your journey and your bio. We're going to kick it off with one question. And my first question is, how did you decide on your career path? That's a very broad question, but how was your experience at Penn State in choosing your major, and what set you up when you left here in Happy Valley? Whoever, Lindsay, would you like to start?
Sure.
It's a loaded question.
It is. And so I actually transferred to Penn State. And when I transferred, there was a whole bunch of the, political, things transferring in, things not transferring. And I landed in a degree I didn't expect to. I was in sociology, and spent enough time with, my advisor that we were able to kind of figure out that that wasn't really where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in HR. I had kind of seen through the years the impact that good HR people can make. And so she really helped me to put me into psychology with an industrial organizational flair, kind of go into those more business related courses. And through that is how I got linked up with the mentoring program in the liberal arts school. It was very young at that point. And when I found my mentor is really when I found a love for HR and really understanding more of what I could do with it. And so between that and some of my professors at Penn State, just spending more time chatting with them outside of class, I was able to kind of start to go down that path. Not every path is linear. There's definitely side steps along the way. And so kind of learning how to roll with the punches, but definitely the time that I spent, at Penn State, especially in that mentoring program, had given me the skills to navigate that.
Yeah, I think for me, I got to Penn State and I don't think I was thinking about this question earlier. I don't know that I ever had a vision for what I wanted my career to be. So I've always had such a broad set of interests, always been very, drawn to problem solving, drawn to situations where I'm being challenged and, working on these kind of big complex problems. And that's why sustainability was so interesting to me because it's so interdisciplinary. There are so many different things you can do with it. And so I think really that love of, first of all, my love of nature and the outdoors and protecting these places that I love so much. And then combining that with a really kind of interdisciplinary view on the world is how I landed in the sustainability space.
Thank you. Since I have you thinking back to Penn State, what are some of the resources you took advantage of while you were here, or ones that maybe you wish you had, just to help our students to navigate the many, many things that are available here at Penn State?
Yeah, there's so much. I was just we were chatting before this panel started, and I was just saying I came back to State College for the first time in 5 years, just a few weeks ago. And I was thinking about how incredible it is to be in a place where everything is designed for your success. So I think really appreciating that you're in this place where everyone who comes to work at Penn State every day is there because they care about students and they care about student success. So I would say I don't think I appreciated that enough as a student. And I don't know that you necessarily can until you're looking back on it and you're not in that environment anymore. But I think chatting more with alumni, I think doing more internships, I sort of I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I stayed really close to home in all of the jobs I took in the summer. I think doing a little bit more exploration of different places and, doing more things outside of my comfort zone to kind of see what else was out there as a student, because I had a pretty narrow view of the world when I first came to Penn State.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree. I think I didn't take advantage of it as fully as I could have as well. I actually worked full time while I was in school, so I was lucky enough to actually work for one of my professors in his private firm. Um, but like I said, the professors are a great resource, and a lot of people have worked or do work in the industries as well. So kind of talking to them and learning from them is huge. And there's actually a lot of adult students that are coming back and they're continuing their education. So getting to know your classmates and learning about their experiences, people from all over the world, because there's a lot of great opportunities that may not be right in front of you. I also am fairly close to home right now, but have moved around and tried to diversify my experiences. That Penn State education definitely means something to people. It's gotten me some opportunities, at least a foot in the door a lot of the time. But what you do with that foot in the door is really what matters. And I think also there's so many different interest groups at Penn State. So if there's something that you're thinking about or not really sure about, getting involved and just learning more in these interest groups is huge. It can make contacts for you and go a lot further than you'd ever think.
For sure. Thank you. I'm sharing in the chat the link to the mentor program that we talked a little bit about, just as a reminder that it is a resource to our current liberal arts students to connect you with someone with a similar major or career path, and really get involved with what that industry means or what they see as being successful, or helping you with an interview, with a mock interview of that kind of nature can be really supportive. Let's dive a little bit more into the idea of the sustainability industry. Just from your two experiences, we can see how diverse it is, both in the work life, even personally, bringing it into your hobbies and what you enjoy outside of work. What do you see as being a current trend in the industry of sustainability, and where our students could be thinking about engaging with now before they graduate? Lindsay, would you like to start?
Well, then that's a big question. I mean, I think sustainability is such a large topic, and so it's really hard to nail down one specific direction it's going. I think that there's so for example, I work obviously energy and marine industry. We work in tech. We work in shipping. We build ship engines. We hybridize power plants. Like there's so many very specific careers there, but there's always supporting roles, and that's the thing. That's where I fit in. I don't do something that specifically says, yes, I work in sustainability, but my company does, and I support that company in doing that. And so I think, at least for me, I think it's really interesting to just research what's out there. If you see a company that does something interesting, find out more about them. And then once you know more about them, see who their competitors are, see who else is doing something out there, and kind of linking from there. I ended up where I am because I was a local HR manager for a small hydro company, which is kind of on the edge of the sustainable industry. It kind of sits in between because of the environmental impact to the waterways. And so I got into that company not knowing more about the parent company, which is Wärtsilä. Had no idea what I was getting into, but knew that it at least spoke to, wanting to do something different with our energy sector and wanting to take a look at more sustainable resources. And so it's not always linear. You're not always going to say, okay, well, this company and I'm going to do this for them. You might kind of fall into finding, something that fits as long as you kind of keep doing that research and looking to see what else is out there. I guess that's my best advice.
I think it's important to explore, right, as liberal arts majors, having that mind to have exploratory and have the foundation of skills, the qualitative skills across any industry, right? I mean, like you're saying, sustainability is a piece across any industry, and anyone interested in HR, obviously Lindsay's demonstrating it's available across every industry as well. So thank you for that connection. Caroline, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh gosh, what was the question?
I loved your answer, Lindsay.
Yeah. Sustainability and any advice in the industry, knowing that it's a breadth of, so much. What's your advice to our students who are interested in that concept, how they can get prepared before they graduate?
Yeah. I would echo Lindsay's point that there's so much, it's so broad. Most companies and industries could be sustainable in some way, depending on how you define it. And I think one thing that's really exciting, but can also be frustrating to folks interested in this space, is that everyone sort of has a different definition of sustainability. There's no definition across the board. You can be talking about environmental, you can be talking about social. I mean, HR, progressive HR policies, that's a great example of sustainability. How do you sustain your people? I think really focusing in on what the things, first of all, your personal definition of sustainability is. What does that mean to you? And what are those values that you're looking to align with your work? So, the things that are most important to you, and how do you find a role or an opportunity that supports that? I think it can be really easy to get caught up in titles too in this space. Like, I want to be a sustainability manager. I want to be a sustainability analyst. And you definitely don't need sustainability in your job title to make it more sustainable. I always like to challenge folks to take the job that you have, and how do you make that more sustainable? And what small ways can you change what you're doing day to day, and bigger picture as well, to really support those values of sustainability that you hold. So yeah, it's broad, but it's different for everyone.
It is super broad for sure. Reminder to our students here that you are welcome to ask questions. What you may be looking for in this broad depth of what sustainability is, and what careers are. And I'm sure Caroline and Lindsay will do their best to give you advice on that. So again, you're welcome to use the Q&A or the chat, whichever one works best for you. What would you say in the meantime, being in the field you've been in and the diverse fields you've been in, what are you seeing students coming out of college, common mistakes they may be making on the work in the field or in the application process? What are some common mistakes you're seeing?
Yeah, I would echo what I said just a minute ago about really, focusing a lot on the title and instead thinking about what's the day-to-day work like, what's what will you be doing day to day, and that's more important than what your title is. I think too, another thing that I see a lot is students coming out of school and, I just need a job. I don't care where it is. I don't care, if I have to move somewhere where I don't know anyone. I just want a job and a paycheck. And I think, having a job and having a paycheck is of course essential. But I would weigh those other components outside of those two things as well. And your work is important and it's a big part of your life, but it's not your entire life. So think about where it is that you want to be as well. What kind of community do you want to be part of? Do you want to be close to folks that you know? I think it's a big decision to move across the country or move to another country, and it can be exciting. But I think thinking about like the timelines of that is an important factor as well. I have a friend who sort of took that route of I'll move anywhere for a job, moved to Europe, amazing, had an amazing time, met a husband there, which is also awesome. But now she's really far away from her family. She just had her first child. And I'm not discouraging exploration in any way. I'm just saying, think about those things that are important to you and the people that you want to be close to.
Yeah, I think I'll echo the know what's important to you. Dig in on that and don't let go of it. It can be tough. It's kind of up and down with hiring. There's a lot of companies now trying to pull back a little bit and being more cautious with their hiring. But I think that yes, you definitely need to make sure that you're where you want to be. Um, if you're presented with an opportunity that you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm not really sure. It's a good opportunity, but I'm not really sure what to do. Um, and let's say it is the only opportunity you're presented with at the moment. There's a learning that comes from every experience. And so I've been in some positions that maybe weren't exactly what I was looking for, maybe didn't have the focus that I wanted, but you can take something out of every experience. And so take it as a learning. Don't show up mad every day if you do have one of those situations. Show up and be willing to put in the work and maybe while you're looking for something else, at least learn what you can out of it. From a in the field perspective, I'll say the thing that I've noticed the most with some of our new people is that maybe it's one of two things. They are not going to be willing to dig in. They expect it to be easy right off the bat. And so be willing to really dig in and put in some hard effort for the first couple of months to make sure that you're really making those connections and understanding what you need to do. Um, and on the other side, yes, you want to speak up and make sure if you have an idea or something, speak up, but also be humble enough to listen. The people that are in these roles are there for a reason most of the time, and they have knowledge as well. Maybe it's something they've tried before, but maybe you're bringing it from a new angle. So, work with people instead of against them. They're there for you to be successful, and you're there for them to be successful. So, kind of try and stay open to those experiences.
Definitely great
Yeah.
advice. And your
I
first
just-
job is not your last.
For sure. I have one thing to add on to what you were just saying, Lindsay. I would say too, don't be afraid to ask why. Because it can be really easy to get into something and become really frustrated with a process or a way of doing things and get really stuck on, why aren't we changing this? Really getting to the history and understanding the why behind certain things that might be frustrating can help you to understand it and also make more effective change.
We don't always like the why, but there usually is one, right?
I love
have a-
asking it.
Yeah, me too. I have a question that just came in, and I might have missed this or read it, Lindsay. You were UP or World Campus?
I was at main campus, but
You just worked.
I worked full time. Yeah.
So, but like juggling full-time work alongside their education economics, this particular student, there, given I was not able to access the same level of resources as an on-campus student, how can I stand out and break into the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be the same for students that are on campus and working full time and you know are kind of struggling with that. It's tough. College is expensive, and not everyone has the opportunity to have that taken care of. So I think so. When I started at Penn State, I was working at Wegmans. I was front end cashier type of thing. But once I got there, I started to try and make some connections to where I thought I wanted to go in my career. And I made intentional moves with it was technically an internship, but I worked it full time while I was in school. So I think that there's opportunities if you kind of have an idea. And I think Caroline said something like this too, be intentional with your internships and starting to kind of give yourself some of those experiences that may help you and show that you didn't just, decide to take like a, whatever job. You were trying to find something that was a little bit going to build your skill level a little bit more and help you to stand out. If you know that there is a company you're interested in and they have some remote positions available, there's always that potential that you could say, hey, I'd like to intern for you, or I'd like to work with you for the summer or whatever you're doing. You may be able to find something. I think that's one of the really big benefits that we're seeing now post COVID. So many more companies are able to do work from home, or at least part-time work from home, and give people experiences like that. So I think kind of trying to angle those experiences that you've got. But then also there's tons of, social media is out there, obviously LinkedIn's out there. Make some connections with people online and maybe try and get into some webinars and courses and things that you can do in the evenings or, in your, we'll call it free time. That can kind of help you to have a little bit more knowledge and understanding, and even better if they come with certifications, because then you can say, hey, here, I took this, I'm certified here. But I think it really depends on that industry you want to get into.
Great question. I think the big key is that the network is available to everyone regardless of campus. And LinkedIn is a powerful tool, as well as LionLink. It's almost like Penn State's version of LinkedIn, and there's alumni waiting to connect directly. So to continue and coming to events like this is great too. We love to see you here as a World Campus student. So, and individual career coaching, right? Between our office and the career office in Atanasoff and Matt Soroka with World Campus. Those resources are still available as well. So great question.
Yeah, I would add there too. Think about the projects that you're doing in your classes and how those might be significant enough to put on your resume, maybe separately, as specific projects related to the jobs that you might be interested in. I've definitely seen that a lot for folks that are coming out of degree programs that have those class projects listed as sort of work experience as well, because a lot of them are really applicable to the real world too.
It's a great segue to think a little bit about the transferable skill set, thinking about that full-time job you're doing outside of the classroom or the leadership roles here on campus, preparing students for graduation and these full-time roles. What do you think are the most important skill sets right now coming out of college in general, and maybe even specifically to the industry of sustainability? And I know that's very broad compared to what we're doing here, but any thoughts on that would be great.
Yeah, I think like 7, 8, 10 years ago in the sustainability space, there was a lot of kind of the mindset of like, oh, you care about this, you're passionate about this, that's great, you can be a sustainability expert here. I think now there's a lot more focus on data-driven decisions. Lindsay, what did you call yourself? The queen data?
I'm a data nerd. Yeah.
Okay. I had queen of data in my head for some reason.
That works.
That too. Yeah. So as Lindsay was saying, super important in HR, but also in sustainability and sustainability reporting particularly. So definitely big picture kind of data analytics. There are also much more technical things like, carbon accounting, that's been growing over the past few years. ESG can get pretty technical, and there are sort of certificates and specializations. And I'm not quite sure about classes that are offered at Penn State in these areas. I would imagine there are some that have come up since I've graduated. So there's definitely that more technical side of things, but then also I think the interdisciplinary thinking and problem solving is super important. Being able to make connections across departments. One of the things I really appreciate about my liberal arts degree is that it gave me the breadth to take classes in so many different areas, and to sort of see that bigger picture when, I'm working with colleagues who are engineering focused, a super technical, super specific skill set. That's of course essential. I mean, you need generalists and you need specialists, but that generalist mindset is something that can be very helpful in sustainability.
Yeah, I will absolutely echo that. The well-rounded education is wonderful, and that ability to step out and take courses where it makes the most sense. I remember there was one, and I don't even know if I took it intentionally, but it was energy in the environment. It was one of my electives, and I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. And I think that's just because I was already kind of going down that path. And so later in life, when I started at Hydra, or I started with Wärtsilä, I'm going like, oh wait, that was what that was about. I get this now, and it all comes full circle. I think kind of being creative and forward thinking, like I mean, obviously sustainability changes constantly. What's next, what's coming, there's so many pieces of it. So not taking the solution that's in front of you as the only solution there is, and being able to kind of problem solve and think about what else there could be or what other options we might have. But definitely data is huge. I mean, that's really what sustainability, that's how we measure our impact and what we're doing. So yeah, it comes down to those basic things. And I think also communications is just across the board. You need to be able to do things that are uncomfortable. In my running coaching that I listen to, there's the coach always says, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so public speaking was always uncomfortable for me, and yet here I am. So you kind of have to be able to learn how to talk to people at all levels, and speak to your audience at the level they are, and just be willing to get out there and network and talk and speak with people. Because if you're really good at doing something but nobody knows, then how are you ever going to show it to anyone else? So go ahead and get uncomfortable and go to networking events. I know it's really rough as a student, but it makes you so much better, and you kind of get to learn a lot out of it.
I appreciate that. We're definitely we're seeing engagement now. It's awesome, as sharing with Lindsay and Caroline, that it feels like 2019 on campus again, and that's wonderful for the benefit of being in person and connecting and getting comfortable again with that kind of communication and building that network. I will also echo the transferable skill set and the idea of flexibility, adaptability, and creativity are taught across industry. And that is because we all witnessed and felt the need to be all of those things during a pandemic when we needed a solution and we needed it quickly, right? From everyone's industry to even ours, where we quickly learned how to do online events. And, back in 2017, I never wanted to do this, right? So we learned quickly, and that is commonly a question in interviewing now across industry is how did you handle that? How did you make it productive? You know, how are you creative in the work you do? Caitlin, I hope those were great solutions too, to thinking about your economics degree, and for all of us on the call, and the idea of that data analytics piece, and knowing that the econometrics class and the R and Tableau and all those things we hate while we're doing them are all really helpful in that idea Caroline mentioned of having an academic project section and talking about the course and talking about research work you've done can be very transferable, but also using that language in the work you are doing in your full-time job or leadership jobs on campus. You're constantly meeting with students who think they have no experience when really they do. You know, that server position at Cafe 210 is huge in building skill sets, right? Like, you're not serving food and clearing tables, you're problem solving, communicating, analyzing, you know, your client and knowing what they're thinking next, upselling, you know, all those things they're helpful across industry. So just make sure you're using that language. We have some time left, but again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I think I'm going to ask both of you, how do you stay inspired in your career? How do you keep motivated and keep moving? I'm going to start. I hate calling people out on these philosophical questions.
I mean, I can go, I guess, and we can kind of trade off. If I think of something else, I'll jump in later. I think for me, it's practice what I preach. And so I have always said, you know, I believe in sustainability. I believe in the environment, giving back and doing better. And so instead of it just being words, it's now I work for a company that their goal is to be carbon neutral in 8 years. And, you know, we have all these other lofty goals. We're part of these initiatives voluntarily. But then in my personal life, I take a look at what I'm buying, and I'm very conscious about the decisions I'm making. And, you know, okay, is it a B Corp? Which I didn't even know what that was until about 5 years ago. And if you don't know about it, look it up. And you know, if sustainability is important to you, those types of companies may be somewhere you would shop, but also work. And my husband is an environmental architect, so he works in the sustainability area as well. And so we spend our time learning. While we're making dinner, we listen to podcasts about, you know, either my industry or his, and what's coming out. And so it's really interesting to hear other perspective outside of my job and his job, and always be learning. That's what life is about for me. But I also stay inspired by being balanced. And it's something that we were actually kind of talking about early on, before everybody jumped in, is balance is so important with life. And so work is important, but it's only part of what you do. And so, you know, getting done with work, usually I'm done with work by 3. I'm on the road running by 3:15. And so I take that time to kind of refocus myself and prepare for, you know, what's coming, and also recenter and make sure that I'm going the direction that I should be going.
Love that answer. I was just trying to find something. I recently signed up for a newsletter, and I can't find what it's called, but it's a climate optimism newsletter. So it's like all good news about climate, which I love. If I find it, I'll throw it in the chat here. But I would say, yeah, I think it's really such a balance of self-care and also what can you give back? What can you do for your community? I volunteer at a local cooperative farm in Burlington. And it's just such a nice way to like get outside, to meet folks that I wouldn't probably meet otherwise who live in the same community as me, and to be active outside. I think focusing on, you know, things like running, hiking, yoga, those things that really refill your cup, whatever those things are, is super important. And I think too, kind of, you know, thinking as you're building your career, as you're making these decisions that are having an impact on what you're doing day to day, really taking time to reflect every once in a while and say, like, am I on the path that I want to be on? I always think about, like, would my self 5 years ago be excited about what I'm doing? Would my future self be proud of me? Really asking those questions and taking that time for self-reflection can also be really inspiring. And Katie, I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned. I was a server for a combined, I think, 10 years or so. I worked at Pickles when I was in college. It's one of the most intense and one of the jobs that I think that I built up so many skills that I use day to day in that role. So I've talked about that in interviews before. I just talked about that in an interview a few years ago. So even to this day, it's I think thinking about those transferable skills is super important.
And volunteering is work, so that can go on your resume as well. Again, the kind of
Mhm.
going on that transferable skills. I mean, volunteering is huge, and it doesn't have to be every week. It doesn't have to be all the time. Do what you can, give back how you can. But those types of things also, definitely build that resume and build those skills.
Absolutely, for sure. I think that there's an intersection here between your passion and want to give back and think about sustainability and, what that means to you in your day-to-day life, and what you do in your volunteer world, but then the ability to also bring that into your professional life. And many times we see those things separated, right? But because of its impact and because of the changes that need to be made across the board, it's very sustainable, right, to live across the two. So thank you both. I really appreciate your time and the students who have joined us to learn more. It's so helpful to hear from those that are working and living and doing the things that they're inspired to do, and that it's possible, right? So we really do appreciate your time and energy as well, and look forward to connecting with you in another time, in another, even on campus, you never know. So I haven't gotten any questions from the audience, so we must really be hitting every one of their needs. So I think at this point, I'm gonna say thank you. And unless there's anything else you want to share or any other professional, I love the idea, Caroline, of the newswire you're receiving. If there's anything they could be checking out on a professional content basis that might be more productive for them than others, we'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I might have to follow up with you on
Okay.
a couple of suggestions there, because
Sure.
there's definitely a lot. But one thing that I thought of just while we were chatting was uh, I also always tell students when I'm talking to them to play the student card, because it's such an easy way to get in the door, to send somebody a random email. Think, if once somebody has graduated and is in the working world, if you reach out to someone cold, you're either trying to sell them something or looking for a job. That's what the assumption is. As a student, it's much more low stakes. Reach out to folks and say, I want to hear about how you got to where you are. I want to hear about the work you're doing. People love talking about themselves. And people also love helping students. So definitely use that to your advantage, the situation that you're in, because, everyone can relate to being a student and to wanting to learn and to, be thinking about the future. So I would definitely use that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think especially in the sustainability industry, that's even kicked up a notch because you always want to be educating people and helping people to come to your side, because it is the future, and that's what we need, more people who are interested in this for the future to be what we want it to be. So absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree. It's so refreshing when I look in my inbox in LinkedIn and it is a student instead of a recruiter or someone else trying to sell me something. And so it is, you just kind of have you kind of just, okay, I'm relieved, what can I do to help these people? And don't be afraid to reach out. And if you especially on LinkedIn, I notice it. Like if you have someone in common, reach out to the person that you know already and see if you can make a connection. Because those resources go so much further than you think. I know it's super cliche, but it's definitely utilize the network that you have to make those connections. It goes so much further if someone says you put in, your application somewhere and somebody who works there that says, I know them. They're good people. You should talk to them. It goes so much further than just putting that application in. Follow up, follow up, follow up too. As an HR person, I will just drill that in. Don't take no for an answer. And if you do get ghosted, continue to ask, because at least then it's forcing that person to realize that they've done something wrong. I had been guilty of it in my prior life and had that realization that they're all people too trying to get jobs. And so, we have to look at the human side of this, and be kind as HR people. So if you're ever in that role, don't ghost anyone. um, but definitely follow up. I had applied for a position once, like 4 times, revamped my resume, applied again, and immediately got an interview, just because I had changed some wording and someone happened to connect with something that I said in there. So it behooves you to just keep trying. If it's something you really believe in, don't give up.
Sure. In quality versus quantity, 180 applications is not as successful as being very intentional about specifying your documents to what you're applying for, especially in this industry where we're led to make a difference and a change in something. So it makes it even more impactful to be more specific in your application.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate your time. It was great meeting you. Thank you to the students who have come. Remember that we're a resource for you as well to go over that resume and practice for those interviews, or even talk about your application process and how to connect a little differently. And we call them informational interviews, and they are priceless and definitely a great tool as a student. So thank you all so much. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.